We know the gunman was born in New York and lived in Florida. He worked as a security guard and had been investigated by the FBI at least twice in the past. Jeff Pegues has details on the gunman's background and the latest on the investigation.
Law enforcement sources say the gunman, Omar Mateen, called 911 during the mass shooting. In the call to a dispatcher, he stated his name and pledged his allegiance to ISIS. While he was not under investigation at the time, officials say Mateen had been on law enforcement's radar at least twice in recent years. Mateen was a U.S. citizen born in New York to Afghan parents. He was living in Fort Pierce, Florida, and has been married. In 2012, Mateen attended the Hajj, which is an annual pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. A year later, in 2013, the 29-year-old turned up on the FBI's radar for the first time. Co-workers said he had made inflammatory remarks about terrorist ties. The FBI's Ron Hopper is leading the investigation.
The FBI thoroughly investigated the matter, including interviews of witnesses, physical surveillance, and records checks. Ultimately, we were unable to verify the substance of his comments, and the investigation was closed.
In 2014, he came to the FBI's attention again, this time because of ties to the first known American suicide bomber in Syria. Monir Abu Salah blew himself up in 2014. After that investigation, Mateen was cleared again.
We determined that contact was minimal and did not constitute a substantive relationship or a threat at that time.
Mateen had been working as a security guard, and with no record, within the last week he was able to purchase a handgun and the AR-15 assault rifle police believe he used to kill and injure more than 100 people. The attack appears well planned. Mateen chose a soft target with few exits for his potential victims to escape. He exchanged gunfire with at least 14 police officers before he was shot to death.
And Jeff Pegues joins us now from Washington. Jeff, the gunman pledged allegiance to ISIS over a 911 call. Are your sources saying to you at all what he may have said over the telephone?
Well, we know now, according to a U.S. intel source, that there were at least 2 911 calls. Let me explain. One was made by Omar Mateen, according to our sources, from a bathroom inside the nightclub. For some reason, the 911 dispatchers had to call him back, which they did. And at that time, according to our sources, he pledged allegiance to ISIS, also made some sort of reference to the Tsarnaev brothers who carried out the Boston bombing, and also clearly stated his name. So there were a series of 911 calls there made, according to our source, from the bathroom inside that nightclub.
Was Mateen, on a terror watch list?
He was not on a watch list. However, his name did pop up in a terrorist screening database when he was being looked at by investigators in 2013 and 2014. But once they closed those inquiries, his name was cleared off that list.
Jeff, I want to play for our viewers a conversation you had with the former deputy director of the CIA, Michael Morell. Let's listen to that.
How important is this 911 call?
It says to me that this is absolutely an individual who was inspired by ISIS.
Why?
Says to me, because he said it, right? He said, I pledged allegiance to ISIS, right? That is the act of becoming a member of ISIS. Says to me he was radicalized. Says to me he was radicalized by them. Says to me this was an act of terror. Says to me this was the largest act of terror in the United States since 9/11.
Is it important for law enforcement to determine whether this was inspired or directed?
Absolutely.
And why?
Significant difference between the two. Strategically and tactically. So strategically, the demonstrated ability of ISIS to reach inside the United States and direct somebody to conduct an attack is huge for their stature, huge for their followers, right? Very important messaging for them. Tactically, their ability to reach inside the United States and direct one person to conduct an attack means they can do 2 or 3. We've been talking, you and I, the last year about something like this happening and the almost certainty that it was going to happen. It's going to happen again, right? Orlando's not the last one. So more of it's going to happen. And there will be a debate, right? There'll be a political debate about how much of our privacy and civil liberties do we give up to enhance our security.
Now, Jeff, going off of that conversation you had with Director Morell, It appears that ISIS has claimed some kind of responsibility. Is there an indication that this attack was, as you pointed out, a direct order from the terror group?
No, even though they put out this propaganda earlier, there is nothing there that indicates a direct tie to Omar Mateen. But obviously, as Mr. Morell pointed out, that is something that investigators will be looking into, because if there is more of a direct link, then you have, or you can compare what happened in Orlando to what happened in Paris, where there was a cell of ISIS operatives planning, conspiring, training essentially to carry out attacks.
Jeff, before I let you go, hours after the attack in Orlando, a man in Los Angeles was arrested after large amounts of weapons and ammunition were found in his car. What are you learning about that investigation?
Well, the FBI is involved. They are assisting Santa Monica PD, but there are no apparent links at this time between that suspect, who has been identified as James Howell, originally from Indiana, we're told. So we're hearing that there are no apparent links yet between Howell and Mateen, but clearly that is an investigation as well that is not yet concluded.
Justice and Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues digging deep for us. Jeff, thank you.